my name is Sasha Strong. I'll be presenting on contemplative psychotherapy as a discipline altogether, and then how it integrates with humanistic counseling and Carl Rogers' work. I'll also talk a little bit about common factors and competency factors in psychotherapist training. And of course, we only have about 15 minutes, so it's going to be a hard time trying to condense 10 years of practice and study into what we can do here. But just so you know, too, I have some business cards outside on your way out on the right in case you want to get in touch with me. Please feel welcome to get in touch. And away we go. All right, let's see. So, Buddhism is one of the primary traditions that contemplative psychotherapy arises from. Here on the left we have a Thai Buddhist monk. In the middle we have a Tibetan library, which condenses 2,500 years of Buddhist wisdom in a single setting. And on the right there's a stupa at Budnath in Nepal, which is one of the cultural forms of Buddhism. It's a reliquary monument. And of course, as you know, Buddhism is a religion that's spread throughout the world, especially in Asia, but now increasingly in Europe and North America. And the thing that's interesting about Buddhism is that beyond being a religion, it is it has a wealth of pragmatic, phenomenological, psychological models. One of the main disciplines of Buddhism, as you know, is meditation and introspection. And based on that, there's a vast array of models of how the mind functions, how disturbing emotions arise, and what's helpful in order to work with them. So on the left, you can see the model of the 5 skandhas, or the 5 aggregates, which is how confused ego arises and maintains itself. In the middle, there's one of the images from the Zen ox-herding pictures, which is a picture of the meditative journey of how one moves from being working with a very conflicted and confused mind, symbolized by the ox, into eventually being able to ride it and, in a sense, merge non-dually with it. And on the right side, you can see the Wheel of Life, which is a pictographic representation of a vast array of Buddhist teachings on the mind, suffering, and liberation. Another major discipline that contemplative psychotherapy draws from is contemplative neuroscience, which is one of the cutting-edge things that's happening in neuroscience nowadays. Here you can see a Buddhist monk, Barry Kurtzen, meditating with an EEG machine. This picture was taken by Antoine Lutz, who is one of the primary contemplative neuroscience researchers nowadays. And here's a picture that Rita Hotzel and her colleagues took of MBSR meditators. They had a control group and a treatment group. And they found that in the MBSR practitioners, there were actually increases in gray matter density at specific sites in the brain, some of them linked to emotion regulation, attentional regulation, interpersonal connection, and self-awareness. And this depicts a model that's advanced by Dan Siegel, who's a psychiatrist, child neuropsychiatrist out of UCLA, who does a lot of work with mindsight and integrating contemplation, interpersonal neurobiology, and psychiatry. And here he talks about differentiation and integration, how mindfulness-awareness gives one access to a hub of open, clear awareness that can connect. You'll see the hub is in the center here, and then around the edge, around the rim, there's all of the senses, the external senses of eye, nose, tongue, and so forth, the internal sense of the interior of the body, the 7th sense, he says, of mental activities, mental events, thoughts, emotions, interpretations, and so on, and then the 8th sense of interconnectedness, how all of those things are integrated throughout the body, mind, and experience. And he says that with mindful awareness, one can establish a spoke from the hub of open, clear, calm awareness to whatever the experience is. So it's possible to both differentiate and integrate everything using this model. So the third major discipline that contemplative psychotherapy draws from is psychotherapy. So here we just have 2 images, one of 2 white people, 2 white men, one on a couch, one taking notes, looking very concentrated and things like that. On the right we have 2 people of color. I assume they're women, but I haven't asked them, so I'm not certain. And there are other possible images of counseling that one could imagine, and accompaniment in all kinds of contexts. So, as I've said, contemplative psychotherapy bridges neuroscience, psychotherapy, and Buddhism. And what I'd like to do now is give you a few of the core tenets of contemplative psychotherapy as I studied it in a master's program in contemplative psychotherapy at Naropa University in Boulder, Colorado. First, I want to say that it draws on the theoretical models of Buddhism. It includes contemplative practices for both therapists and for clients. And part of what it helps to do is cultivate therapeutic presence and empathy. That's actually one of the core aims of contemplative psychotherapy, is to use mindfulness practice and other contemplative practices to increase one's ability to connect with the client and to help the client to increase their ability to connect with themselves and with other people in their lives. It promotes a genuine healing relationship. As one of the big relational qualities of contemplative psychotherapy is openness to experience and openness to encountering the other in a warm way. And finally, promoting a direct relationship with experience. Rather than living in one's head and in one's interpretations, one could be in direct contact with the world, the outer world as well as the inner world. Okay, so the three core concepts, the three big takeaways that I would say are brilliant sanity, the notion of brilliant sanity, maitri, and mindfulness-awareness. Those are three core concepts in contemplative psychotherapy. All right? So the first, and you'll see they're color-coded by color. So the first is brilliant sanity, right? So this is the crest of the Naropa Contemplative Psychotherapy Journal that was published for a decade and a half. And it says brilliant sanity up above. And it shows that the capacity is to pacify and also to help people along their path of well-being. And the notion of brilliant sanity is that intrinsic health underlies all confusion and all wakefulness. Rather than thinking pathology, we look at somebody's intrinsic worthiness and intrinsic wisdom, and we work with that. We find ways to help clients connect with that, and as therapists, we undertake practices to connect with our own brilliant sanity, because that allows us to recognize the client's brilliant sanity. So this is really the ground that everything comes from in contemplative psychotherapy. And the main intervention is to help clients align with their brilliant sanity, to recognize, oh, actually, even in the midst of great confusion, the clouds break open and the sun shines through, and that happens. And so there's a shift in allegiance. Rather than having an allegiance or an alliance with confusion and pain, they can start to ally with a sense of goodness and worthiness and awareness, open awareness. The second key concept is maitri. This is a banner with a Tibetan word, maitri. And maitri is the Sanskrit word for unconditional friendliness. So maitri is something that therapists cultivate towards clients, and clients can cultivate in their own lives through meditation practice of various kinds, and just through a sense of befriending oneself. It's really one of the core attitude of contemplative psychotherapy, this loving kindness and open friendliness. And the third, I would say the core practice of contemplative psychotherapy is mindfulness-awareness practice. This is a picture of a class at Naropa University where actually as part of the class people have a meditation practice together. This is a Buddhist psychology class at Naropa. And a lot of my classes looked like that. Just people sitting on cushions meditating and talking about meditation together. So here are some slides about the various benefits of contemplative psychotherapy, or rather of mindfulness, both for clients and for therapists. And I also wanted to make some comments based on Carol Philander's talk this morning in the Competency in Psychotherapy section, where she mentioned that Epstein and Hundert in 2002 talked about that to really be competent, therapists need to cultivate these habits of mind: attentiveness, critical curiosity, self-awareness, and presence. And I would argue that mindfulness awareness practice is a core practice for cultivating those habits of mind. So if we really want to be expert psychotherapists, if we can use this practice to become more attentive, critically curious, self-aware, and to have more presence both to ourselves and with our clients, that will go a really long way in terms of building towards competence and expertise over the course of our careers. The concepts are mutually reinforcing. You discover brilliant sanity through mindfulness awareness, which makes you more open to your experience, which makes you more mindful, and so on and so forth. For clients and for therapists, and the humanistic part that I promised I would put in here, is that brilliant sanity can be likened to Rogers' organismic tendency that underlies a basic drive towards wholeness and growth. There are some similarities there. Maitri can be likened to unconditional positive regard, which is one of the necessary and sufficient conditions for therapeutic change that Rogers postulated in his 1957 seminal paper. And mindfulness awareness, I have a little arrow there to say that mindfulness awareness practice leads to therapist genuineness and therapist congruence, and it also enhances the therapist's ability to make therapeutic contact with the client. In being in contact with oneself and being open to oneself, one is better able to be in contact with and open to others. I'm going to breeze through some contemplative psychotherapy titles. Here are 4 that are pretty good. Here's another 4 that are pretty good. Here are 4 training institutes where you can train in contemplative psychotherapy. And future directions. One is to study the effect of contemplative psychotherapy on the therapeutic alliance. There's a dearth of empirical research in contemplative psychotherapy, and there ought to be more. We have all this MBI research. We need more research on the effects of meditation on the clinician, both in terms of therapeutic outcome and potentially in forms of transformation, how therapists change over time in training with contemplative psychotherapy. We can include more Buddhist psychology, philosophy, and ethics within MBIs, and we can understand better the interrelationship of meditation practices with common factors, which I think is a really important thing to have good empirical evidence. Here are some references. And here's some further reading. And I'll send you these slides if you ask me to. I'd be happy to. And here's my contact information.